Happy Thursday, and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. Big weekend, obviously, with baseball. It's graduation here in Lincoln as well for UNL students here on the spring semester. A lot going on, but it's also the back end of spring recruiting. Next week will really be the last week. Coaches will be out for Nebraska. They might be out through Wednesday, possibly Thursday. But, you know, we've seen recruiting kind of take things over here in the last few days for Nebraska. And that's where we start with headline number one, spring recruiting. And, you know, the rules changed this year, Sip, for spring recruiting. Coaches now can meet with these prospects on campus. They can conduct visits at the schools with the parents, with the families. So it almost has a December feel right now in May. And I feel like Nebraska has attacked this differently than a lot of other schools in the sense that when there's a priority target, you can only visit them one time now. You used to be able to visit them twice in the spring. They make it a very memorable experience, a memorable visit. And we've seen that the last few weeks where these prospects that they have offered and that they're targeting will get 5 and sometimes 10 Husker coaches visiting them at one time. We saw it with all the key in-state players like Christian Jones and Chase Lofton. But this week, Nebraska was down in Texas, and they flew the private plane down to San Antonio. 5-star athlete Michael Terry got a visit from the staff. And then the coaches from there all went out all over San Antonio, met back at the plane. They flew to Dallas. They went with 4-star wide receiver Emmanuel Choice, met with him. And now here on Thursday, you're seeing Nebraska down in Kansas City in Overland Park, and they're doing a staff visit with Dawson Merrick. And Alabama, who is the other team in his final two, they are also down there on Thursday. They came in at 6:45 a.m. to watch his workout, and I believe it was just one coach. Nebraska is going in there with 5, 6, 7 coaches. So this is the strategy. You get one crack, one spring visit with your key guys, staff up, make it memorable. And they've done a pretty good job, I think, of getting in front of some of these key guys here in the month of May.
Yeah. I mean, the one in Kansas City, Dawson Merritt, is the one to really watch right now. I mean, and partly because it's the latest one. It's today, which is Thursday.
He's down to 2.
He's down to 2. Now, so already Nebraska sort of has a victory. And there's the young man right
And that's
there.
from December or January. They visited him in the evaluation period because Matt Rhule can't be down in Kansas City here on Thursday.
This is a linebacker, a will linebacker. Nebraska's recruiting him as a linebacker.
And his father works for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. Now, Nebraska, Sean, already has a bit of a victory in that he eliminated Missouri and Oklahoma. So, I mean, now listen, that's pretty significant. Obviously, Kansas is out of the running. Kansas State's out of the running. Nebraska's positioned itself in the final 2, and that in itself is a victory. Now, you obviously want to see them close, but Nebraska being able to go into that area and stave off Missouri, stave off Oklahoma, that's a good sign. It's a good sign no matter what. And there he is.
And Kansas and Kansas State, I mean, 2 programs.
Right.
That have won a lot of games in the last few years.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So consensus 4-star player. Nebraska's talked to him about playing will linebacker, using him off the edge, but also, you know, and there'd be multiple roles in that scenario. So, yeah, this is a really, really interesting one to watch.
Now, our colleagues at Bama Online,
yeah,
I know they feel like Alabama still likes where they stand. So this is going to be an uphill battle. I mean, I think Alabama's recent history, their recent pro development in that program, it's an advantage over Nebraska. I mean, and that's where Matt Rhule has to prove, hey, look what we've done in year 1. Look at some of the guys we've already developed, gotten ready to play, and it's only going to get better. But the fact that they've got Dawson Merritt on campus 3 times, and he'll make his 3rd visit to Alabama June 7th.
Yep.
Then the decision is going to come shortly after. Now, how shortly after? Could Nebraska get him back up in Lincoln another day in June? That would be a great sign. I don't know if that's a possibility or if he's just going to shut it down, as both the Tide and the Huskers will get 3 visits apiece with Dawson Merritt before he makes a decision.
Yeah, and Dawson Merritt has said he told Chad Simmons that he'll decide in June. So we'll know pretty soon on this one. And it would be, I mean, you got Jamarian Parker hanging out there. As you alluded to, this time of year, you're starting to see the big high profile guys make their moves. So it is real. This is going to get really interesting, Sean.
And fans always want to know who are the 4-stars that they've got a chance to get in this cycle.
Yeah.
And they got their quarterback, 4-star TJ Lateef.
Right.
They're in really good shape with 4-star running back Jamarian Parker out of St. Louis. At the wide receiver position, Michael Terry can fit in that role. Manuel Choice, both 4-star guys. At tight end, Chase Lofton, a 4-star out of Millard South. Then at linebacker, Omaha West Side's Christian Jones. So those are the 4-stars, along with Merrick. I mean, they've got a lot of 4-star guys and 5-star guys that they've moved in on, and obviously Sanders, the offensive lineman that was in this past weekend, is one of the highest ranked players they've recruited in history in Nebraska. And I'll be curious what the plan is if they go down there next week and get one more visit in with him.
Mm-hmm. David Sanders.
Now I don't know. Yeah. Cause I don't know for sure with David Sanders, the 5-star of Charlotte, if they've actually gone down there yet. You only get one visit.
Mm-hmm.
That is the real strategic thing about May now. You used to go twice and see a guy. Now you get 2 or just one. And you got to make sure it's meaningful. So will Nebraska be able to get down there one more time or get down there and see him? He's got a very busy schedule. He's got 5 official visits coming up to some of the best programs in college football: Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson. Will Nebraska stay on his mind after all of that is really the question with David Sanders.
Yep. That's the biggest fish of them all. Now people are going to wonder, Sean, how is Nebraska doing this? How are they positioning themselves for this magnitude of player? Well, the answer is it's a package that Nebraska presents. And if you think about it, the package that Nebraska presents to recruits has gotten better since Rhule got here. But some of it's because the training facility's done. They have a incredibly well-functioning and gorgeous athletic training facility. They have Dylan Raiola, one of the most exciting young players in college football. They have a coach who sells everything really well. Sean, if Matt Rhule wasn't a football coach, he could probably make as much money as he does now selling something. I mean, he's a incredibly verbal person. He's very dynamic as a speaker, and he sells really well. So he's selling the program.
And they've got alignment now with a collective.
There you go. Thank you.
And by the way,
thank you for remembering the collective, because that's probably the second most important thing.
The beauty of what you just did, we just watched you kind of talk out a column. Like that was a column right there.
Ooh, hello. Yeah, the package.
Like how are they getting David Sanders? Like what are they doing? Because they don't have a lot of recent on-field results to sell.
No, but they present a nice package right now. And then the last thing would be, Sean, if they can win 8 or 9 games and get on a bit of a heater, then the package is really complete. I mean, it's a package. If I just could only say 1 or 2 things, that's not a package. But there's 5 or 6, and that's critical.
They need to take advantage of the schedule they have this year.
Oh, the Big Ten's another part of the package. They're in the maybe the most powerful conference in the country, if not it's the second most powerful. So there's 5 or 6 very critical parts of the package, and maybe that is a column. Sean,
sounds like you just walked out a Sunday column.
Yeah,
maybe a Tuesday.
Yeah, one of the two.
All right. Before we take the headline number 2, Husker Online headlines brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. Ellerbrock-Norris has been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years. With risk management solutions built for local businesses, Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy to protect it. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Workplace injuries skyrocketing your workers' compensation costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to family, key employees, or even a friendly competitor? Talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business and the employees in it, your life outside of work, or your future retirement goals. Head to ellerbrock-norris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. Thank you again to Ellerbrock-Norris for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online show. All right, headline number 2, Matt Rhule strikes tone with "let's just shut up and go to work." And Matt Rhule was a guest this week on the Husker Sports Radio Network with Jessica Cootie for a segment this past week, and hit on a number of different topics, Steve Sipple. But that one really got your attention as he kind of turns the page here and really gets into the summer.
Yeah, it did get my he did strike the right tone, as that headline says. It struck a good chord with a lot of people. I noticed on my Twitter. Sean, you've mentioned this a few times, this part, that it's been a long time since Nebraska started a season 1-0. It was 2019 to be exact, when they beat South Alabama. And I think that score, Sean, was 35-21. Does that sound right to you?
It was a lot closer than it should have been.
So Nebraska hasn't been 1-0 in a long time. And Matt Rhule's driving home that point. And the other night he said, as a program, here's what he said exactly. As a program, we've just kind of got to shut up and go work and earn some things. I trust these guys. They're really good workers. I think they'll do it. What a great quote. What a great quote from a leader. As a program, we've just kind of got to shut up and go work and earn some things. Not that there's a lot of talking, there's not. But, in this world, Sean, in this world that we're in, there's inevitably everybody's talking. I guess I should put it this way. Nebraska's not talking any more than a lot of other programs talk. But I like that. I like that message.
There's just a desire here, because of the microscope, the media coverage, the number of people that cover this team, to talk to people in the slow times of the year. It's not like that in Madison, Wisconsin.
Nope.
It's not like that in Iowa City.
Nope.
It's not like that in Manhattan or Lawrence.
No.
But here, where 90,000 people attend games in a state with less than 2 million people every week, every home game,
mm-hmm.
There's a desire to hear people talk. So then it leads to headlines in the off season and creates, kind of the talking season part. But
yeah, it is.
The expectations, I wrote this on Thursday, Sip, about the over-unders. And it is startling when you look at what Nebraska has done since the year 2015.
Okay.
They've only gone over on their Vegas over-under win total one time since 2015.
Since 2015.
And that was the 2016 year where they went 9-4, 9 regular season wins. They had an over-under that year at 7.5. The most highest over-under they had recently was in 2019. Very manageable schedule, picked to win the West. They were ranked in the preseason. They had an 8.5 over-under. They only won 5 games.
Yeah. Ooh, ouch. So this year it's 7.5 is what Sean, I saw that on Circus Sports. So I think we look at
7.5 is this year's number. No, the number is the same pretty much everywhere.
Okay, 7.5, which is it's a number that makes sense. It's a number, right now, and these conversations do evolve, but right now, as I sit here, I think of Nebraska as a 7-win team in the regular season. And so 7, I take the under probably right now, but it'd be hard. It'd be a hard bet to make. The schedule, we talk about it all the time, is manageable. And it's not just manageable at the first 7. It's, Sean, if you really look at it, the back end's pretty manageable too. UCLA coming into Lincoln in November, I like Nebraska's chances a lot. In fact, UCLA's over under, I believe, is 5.5. USC is 7.5 as well. Nebraska's over under 7.5. USC's is 7.5. That's not a deadly game in any way. I don't worry about USC punishing Nebraska physically or anything like that. They don't do that to anybody. Wisconsin, come on, that's very manageable. They about beat them last year, and at Iowa, Nebraska, it wasn't that long ago, Nebraska won at Iowa. So the schedule really from front to back is manageable.
Because Iowa and Wisconsin have beaten Nebraska so consistently.
Yeah.
Like you feel like there's this massive gap.
There's not.
in the win-loss there is, but when you watch the games and how close they've been, there's not.
No.
I mean, they jumped up 14-0 in Madison last year.
Yeah.
And they were a third down stop, probably from potentially knocking Wisconsin out of that game.
Right. And I talk about that sometimes with the Nebraska defense. It was a good defense. It was the 11th ranked defense in the country, but I can remember too many instances where they didn't get stops late. And Tony White will remind his guys of that.
And I think if you're being objective, a lot of defenses in the Big Ten were good because the offensive play wasn't great. So a lot of defensive numbers in this league for a lot of teams were ranked high.
That's true.
Because there were hardly any offenses that put up 400 yards a game.
Right. Now, back to Nebraska's defense, though, you watched it. They're good. I mean, that's a good defense. I don't, they
got to force more turnovers.
Yeah.
And they got to, get more sacks with 4-man rushes. I mean, I think those are the two things I'd like to see this year. And Matt Rhule made I forget what game it was, but they had at least 6 sacks one game or 8, a high number. And he's like, I've never been a part of a game where we had 8 sacks or whatever it was. We didn't force a fumble off one of them.
Yeah, I know.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's how you flip a game.
Absolutely. And that's one way that Nebraska can reverse that ungodly trend of losing 1-score games. But anyway, I like that tone. Going back to the quote, just shut up and go to work and earn. And that's, you know what? He has that type of team and he's that type of coach. So, we always talk about vibe and culture. It's good. I mean, they got through the spring really well. It was a good spring game. Unlike last year, that turnover issue was real and it proved to be a portend to what we saw during the regular season. This season, the spring game went really well. I thought the spring went really well. And then, then the leader is on the statewide radio saying, let's just keep working. Let's just keep working and keep our heads down.
All right. Before we go to headline number 3, Husker Online headlines brought to you by nuts.com. If you haven't tried it, no better time to check out nuts.com. And we've got a great deal and offer I'll get to for our Husker Online listeners that have never ordered before, first-time users at nuts.com. But they've got everything, not just nuts, snacks, candy, coffee, you name it. Pantry staples, Stephen M. Sipple.
I love the term. What's a pantry staple in the Callahan household? Come on, you got one. What's a pantry staple for your dog?
Granola, pretzels, just
perfect.
You walk in there, something that you could just grab a handful of. And I've seen you do that in my stash at nuts.com here, Steve.
Yeah,
you walk in the cabinet in the office and just take a handful. There's
a lot of nervous energy when you walk in here, Sean. I mean, there's high expectations, and I just think nervous energy sometimes leads to walking in and going straight to the cabinet.
And the bourbon pecans definitely take the cake.
They take the cake, but a lot of this stuff is really good. I mean, that hunky dory popcorn mix definitely has my attention. And I like the dried fruit, particularly the dried apricots.
And I know you like, is it the wasabi peas? We traveled once to Hawaii and the United Club Lounge, and you can get these at nuts.com. You can see it right there. The Asian snack mix. It looks like those are
I think there might be some wasabi peas mixed in there. Yep.
But we were in a lounge going to San Francisco to Honolulu, and I've never seen somebody take down the wasabi peas like Steve Sipple.
There was an excitement for sure. I was excited. They had a big bin of wasabi peas, and that, I don't know, Sean, they're just perfect. They're perfect, as you would say, grab and go food.
All right. Well, if you haven't tried it out as a first-time customer and listener of Husker Online, we got a deal for you here. Spend $29 at nuts.com. Go to nuts.com/Husker. Spend $29. We're not only going to give you free shipping, they're also going to give you a free gift, another bag of nuts. That's nuts.com/Husker for first-time users and orders of nuts.com, $29. And they're going to hook you up as well with free shipping and a free gift. Thanks again to nuts.com for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, headline number 3. Adrian Martinez is the favorite to win the MVP of a professional football league. And I'll be honest, I have not paid attention until this year, Steve Sipple, to spring league football since like 1999 when Lawrence Phillips was playing in NFL Europe.
Yeah, he was playing. I think he was playing for
Barcelona, and they won it. They won it.
Yeah, and the Niners organization. He didn't have a great year. He looked okay. But anyway, Adrian's killing it in the UFL is what we're talking about for the Birmingham Stallions. Let's put it this way, he leads the Birmingham Stallions in rushing, as you would maybe expect Adrian to do, averaging 10 yards a carry. Okay, but he's throwing the ball really well too. 10 touchdown passes, 1 interception. 10 touchdown passes, 1 interception. 60%, completing 59% of his passes. He had to beat out, help me with the pronunciation, Sean, Matt Corral or Coral, the former Ole Miss quarterback, beat him out. And is really, my sense is that he's the story of the league.
They're undefeated.
Yeah, they are undefeated at 7-0.
And they just had a big win against St. Louis this past weekend. So they're going to be the top seed going into the playoffs in a few weeks, more than likely. But you watch Adrian, and I go back to his freshman year.
Okay.
This was the guy I think we thought he was going to be. Then the weight of the world kind of got put on his shoulders after that freshman year. He got hurt. And then kind of the critics came out during the COVID year for Frost to bench Martinez to play. And he did. And he benched him to play Luke McCaffrey.
That's right.
And Luke McCaffrey, who's now an NFL wide receiver, we learned real quick he was not really geared up to be a quarterback at the Big Ten level.
Well, he didn't have the arm strength for number one. He's not big, and I thought his size was questionable. He could, McCaffrey can run. You're right, though. I mean, here's the thing. It's funny when you're reflecting like that. Adrian, in a recent interview, had a great quote. He said, really, right now, for me, this is not a time it's not a time for reflection. It's a time for action. I mean, Adrian, I've always thought of Adrian as a future CEO. So that quote, like you saw him, Sean, as a freshman, command that interview room at Nebraska so well. He had a very commanding presence. He's very well spoken. He was very thoughtful. I always was struck by how mature he was in those settings. And then he comes with a quote like that sounds like a CEO. This is not a time for reflection. It's a time for action. Sean, you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to make it to the NFL. I mean, that's his dream. He's only 24 years old. He wants to play in the NFL. Got a shot with Detroit. I heard an interview with him. It was fascinating. He got a shot with Detroit. Okay. But he said, you go to the NFL, the system's complicated and they don't dumb it down for you. So Jared Goff, multi-year starter, veteran, has a command of the playbook. You got to learn it quick, and it's complex. And they don't say, "Hey, we'll dumb it down for you." So you're kind of up against it. Now Adrian obviously got cut, and then sat out last fall. He didn't play. First time since he was like 6 or 7 years old.
He did an internship in the athletic department.
Yeah, didn't play in football. And now he's materialized in this spring league, and he is all in to play in the NFL. That's what he wants to do.
You think about, how close he was. Think about his last year at Nebraska. He had Michigan on the ropes. He had Ohio State on the ropes.
He did, yeah.
There were a lot of moments in 2021 where he was so close to helping Nebraska kind of turn things.
Yeah. And now here's the thing. This is where, Adrian, hopefully he's not watching this because this is not what he wants. He doesn't want us talking about his past, but we can. We're a Nebraska outfit. This is where it got dicey with me, for instance, on my own radio show. He didn't have enough around him. This always, to me, was an uncomfortable conversation. And it'll cause people in the comments to go back and forth. He did not have enough around. We didn't see Adrian Martinez because he was done wrong by the coaching.
He had enough around him as a freshman, and we saw what it looked like with Divino Zigbo and Stanley Morgan.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's still not what he had at Kansas State. I mean, it's pretty good though.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn and
yeah, and it's not what he has now. He has a lot around him with the Birmingham Stallions. That's what you're seeing. That's a good team. You won't recognize a lot of the names, but they're good. I watch film of them. Sean, he's got players, and that's the key. That is the key. He had to carry too much of a load here. But the way I always put it would be like a typical game against, say, Wisconsin. Okay, if Nebraska's going to win, Adrian's probably going to have to run for 100 and throw for 200. That's a lot.
Or
that's a lot.
Or 300
or 250. Yeah, that's a lot to ask. It's crazy when
think
you
about
think about
that Rutgers game on the road.
Yeah,
the load he carried. I mean,
yeah. People are going to disagree with this. That's fine. I'll never change my mind. You would never get me to change my mind on this topic. He did not have enough around him. End of story, in my opinion. He's a good player. He was a good player.
Well, we saw the brilliance of what he was as a freshman. And then you got moments of that again. Like, I'll go back to the 2021 Northwestern game. That still is one of the cleanest and most dominant offensive performances you'll ever see.
21 Northwestern. Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
right.
they made a pretty good defensive coach look like he was coaching a walkthrough.
Fitzgerald.
Like, they didn't know what to do.
Right. You're right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Now Northwestern was badly outmanned. So Nebraska did have some players, and he had players at times, but not nearly enough. And it never really all came together. So this is what I like about this is it's sort of proof to me that, you put guys around him, look what he can do. It happened at Kansas State too. Then he hurt his knee. He beat out Will Howard. Okay. He beat out Will Howard.
He came in as the starter though. Like Chris Kleiman, it wasn't really a QB battle. What he did was he got Will Howard ready to take over when he got hurt. He helped him.
Okay.
But when he went to Kansas State, there was more or less a gentleman's agreement. He was coming down at a start.
And he looked good.
And then he had enough integrity to understand he was hurt, and he got Will Howard ready to go.
Right.
Okay. And now Will Howard's going to be at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, welcome to college football in 2024, by the way. But
yeah. So now the way this would work out, Sean, is the Stallions season would end in June. And then if it all goes well for Adrian, he'd get about a month off and then go into an NFL camp to try to earn a job.
And what's realistic? A number 2 job in the NFL? Like
2 or 3.
Just getting in somewhere. Yeah. And then you hope you get an opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm not well versed enough to know how many teams keep 3 quarterbacks. Not all do.
Well, you kind of have to, though. I mean, you saw in that playoff game when San Francisco.
Yeah, maybe you do. I don't know. I'm like I said, I don't know. But yeah, he wants to make a roster. That's what he wants to do. Find a good spot.
Before we take it to headline number 4, Husker Online Headlines is brought to you by Heartland Red, Lincoln's quality deck builder, locally owned and operated by Lincoln, Nebraska natives. They are a premium custom deck builder. They build with composite and PVC, both residential and commercial decks, small decks, large decks, pool decks, standalone decks. They can do the lights around the column wraps, privacy walls, underdecking, you name it. And this is the perfect time of year. You want to entertain, you want to enjoy your backyard, you want to sit outside and listen to Nebraska baseball on the radio or watch it on TV. You want to be on a great deck. You want to sit outside and have the grill going and be proud of that custom deck that Heartland Red's going to come over and build you. And, right here in Lincoln, as I said, they've won several awards for their work and their craftsmanship. Check them out at their website at heartlandred.com or give them a call at 402-405-5755 to set up a bid today. They'll come out, give you a bid, give you some ideas, what would work for your backyard space. That's at heartlandred.com, 402-405-5755. Thank you again to Heartland Red for sponsoring us on the Husker Online show. Okay, headline 4, and I love these types of discussions, and especially in May. The ACC will not go down without a fight. And what we're talking about here is Florida State and Clemson, who are looking at a $30 to $40 million a year deficit compared to SEC and Big Ten schools, and they fancy themselves to that level of school.
Mhm.
And they want out of the ACC because they want to get paid like a Big Ten or an SEC school.
Mhm.
And the ACC and their commissioner, Jim Phillips, and the teams there have said, we are not going to just let you out. We're going to make this hard, and we're going to make you pay every dollar, which I believe, Steve Sipple, is $360 million.
Yeah, it's in that range. 352, I think, is the number I saw. So what the ACC is doing, and this is right from the Action Network, you're right, Sean. This is getting pretty interesting in the South here. The ACC, according to Brett McMurphy, is using a strategy straight from an ACC legend. Now, you might or might not be old enough to remember this. He's talking about former North Carolina basketball coach Dean Smith and his four corners offense, which was amazing. I remember it like it was yesterday when you'd watch Carolina games and he'd do that, take the air out of the ball. Now, what they're saying here is that the ACC is trying to take the air out of FSU and Clemson's attempts to leave the league. Use stall ball. Stall it out as long as you can. Be in no hurry to reach a settlement with either school. Because, as McMurphy points out, the ACC realizes if FSU and Clemson exit, he puts it pretty well. I got a chuckle out of this. It might start a conga line out the door. You know, you might see. You can relate, can't you, Sean? Conga line.
My daughters they really enjoyed the conga line. they got to do one at one of their school dances. And
I saw you almost lapse into doing a conga line, which is really interesting. But yeah, so it's Sean. I agree with you. In May, I think you mean. You like these discussions in May because there's not a lot going on. You can kind of settle in on a story like this.
Well, I like to think about possible trips to Clemson and Florida State.
because you think they're going to the Big Ten?
Yes. And an outlier for me is Miami. I don't know if the Big Ten would take Miami. They fit the academic brow of the league with the AAU status, the media market. But just the thought of Nebraska and Miami playing a game.
That's kind of
regularly
fun.
And trips to Miami in November sound fun.
It does sound fun. I want to say this though, Sean, I can't help but read this and cheer for the ACC. I guess it's just the traditionalist in me. I think we look at this a little different. I like the ACC making it hard for them, making it excruciatingly hard for them.
Do you know who could end this whole thing though? Is ESPN.
Yeah.
Because guess who controls the SEC?
Yeah.
ESPN.
You're right.
Guess who controls the ACC? ESPN. And if you're ESPN, you cannot let Florida State and Clemson leave to be inventory for Fox, NBC, and CBS.
Yeah, it gets really complicated. It gets kind of complicated.
Remains the X factor. You take that inventory off ESPN and you add it to those three networks, that's a missile right into the side of ESPN and the money they make on college football, because very few of those games move the needle at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get, they added Cal and Stanford and SMU. That does nothing.
Cal, Stanford, and SMU. That's what I mean. This whole thing's sort of ridiculous.
Like they're just buying time and they're going to try to fleece those teams for as much as they can.
Yeah.
And, you read the trustees from Florida State. It's not a matter of if and we're going to leave the ACC. It's a matter of when and how it's going to happen.
Right.
They're leaving the ACC.
In fact, that's exactly what the trustee, Drew Weatherford, who I believe is a former quarterback there, by the way, a Florida State trustee, Drew Weatherford, said that exact quote. And you were mentioning these dollar figures that, Florida State and Clemson feel that they're operating at a deficit in comparison to the Big Ten and SEC. This is what they say. Florida State officials say they expect the school to be at about a $40 million annual disadvantage compared to the schools in the SEC and Big Ten. But that number increases to closer to $50 million when you include the new college football playoff revenue distribution model that begins in 2026. That's untenable. That's where I understand where Florida State and Clemson are coming from. You're at a severe disadvantage at that point.
And I don't think the SEC is real wild about adding those teams. South Carolina does want Clemson in that league.
You've been consistent in that.
And Florida does not want Florida State. They don't want him.
No.
They'll hurt him in recruiting.
Yep.
But ESPN could go to the table with the SEC and say, look, we can't allow these guys to go to the Big Ten. We can't, because in the end, it's going to strengthen the revenue for that league by adding those teams. And then there's teams like North Carolina that remain a wild card, Virginia Tech, Miami. There's some pretty quality brands that have decisions to make. And, you know, what Virginia, I mentioned, would the Big Ten be interested in any of those teams? What about the Big 12? I mean, the Big 12 has kind of created this basketball super league with Kansas and Arizona and all these brands. Would North Carolina and Duke just want to be a part of the Big 12 at that point?
Yeah, Virginia is a basketball school.
I mean, could they create kind of a Tobacco Row of the Big 12?
Maybe.
From the desert to the Tobacco Row. I mean, it would be a crazy league when you think about all the teams they've had. Gonzaga could be in the Big 12.
Yeah, I just wonder. Yeah, I mean, it gets really crazy when we talk about it. And I see that this is where I get hung up. Are we really talking about a conference at that point, or are we just talking about a super league at that point?
Basically, we're talking about a TV collective.
Yeah, I don't know if you could even call it a conference at that point. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This is where we're headed.
You know who started all this, though? Nebraska.
Kind of. I mean, I was thinking about it as I was reading all this, how blessed we are to not have to deal with any of this.
Tom Osborne
and Harvey,
and Harvey looked at what was happening, in the summer of 2009 or 2000,
that far back,
2010.
Yeah, 2010. That's right.
Robin went down to Kansas City for those spring meetings when the legendary phone call happened from Jim Delaney to Harvey Perlman on that drive back.
That's right. You remember that? It was reported on. Yeah, that was an incredible time. Yeah, I went to Kansas City as well to report on that, and it was a remarkable period. But Nebraska got settled into the right conference, and we're forever indebted, I'd say, equally to Harvey Perlman and Tom Osborne. Wouldn't you say equal? Because Tom. It probably doesn't happen without Tom's name, but it probably doesn't happen without Harvey's shrewd sort of way of what's the word I'm looking for? Negotiating, I guess, would be the easy.
Okay,
term. Harvey Perlman is nothing if not shrewd. He's very shrewd.
I'm going to throw this out here, though. I also think, call me crazy for this theory, but think Ndamukong Suh too. In 2009. Nebraska football appeared to be heading back to the top of the mountain. They almost beat Texas. They should have beat Texas for the Big 12 title. They were a top 10 team at that point because of Ndamukong Suh. The timing of that Ndamukong Suh season, in my opinion, played a major factor to get Nebraska into the Big 10, because the Big 10's like, we're adding a top 10 team at this point. It's a no-brainer with their history, their fan base, their AAU at that moment. Let's add Nebraska. It makes too much sense. Now, if it was right now and Nebraska was in the Big 12, would the Big 10 take Nebraska? I don't know. It'd be
Osborne. Yeah.
It'd be dicey.
Yeah, you're right.
But they had major leverage in 2009 because of the Ndamukong Suh season.
And I would expand that a little bit, because it was a defense that was really good beyond Suh. Crick, they had Jared Crick, right?
Dennard, Prince Umukamara.
Yeah, I mean, Prince Umukamara is Nebraska's last first-round draft.
Eric Haig, DeJon Gomes, Levante David was 2010.
Yeah, no, they didn't have David, but they were loaded on defense. But you're right, Suh led it. But I can remember some games where, for instance, Crick against Baylor had 5 sacks. I mean, nobody's ever had 5 sacks at Nebraska besides Jared Crick, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it 6 or 5?
5.
And there's a school record at that.
School record, still a school record. So it was Suh, but defense was loaded. I mean, they were playing ridiculous defense, if you recall, Sean.
But that team,
you're right, though.
That team, I think, actually helped Nebraska get, it made them a no-brainer for the Big Ten because of the recency bias. When you have recency bias on thoughts,
yeah. And think about the scene in Texas, just at Jerry World when they played Texas, how intense that atmosphere was. It's amazing. And that's what Nebraska fans hunger for, that it gets back to that you have those scenes again that are remarkable, that you never forget. I mean, they had Texas beaten. It was Colt McCoy, right? That was
I'll never forget that game. Just sitting there watching Suh just
Well, what happened, and I'll never forget, is you were able to watch, you were able to see so much on the big screen at Jerry's World, and it was so. I mean, that is an incredible screen. And before the snap, McCoy's eyes were so wide because he was scared. I mean, McCoy was scared of Sue. He was deathly afraid. I know what fear in someone's eyes looks like, and that's what it was. That's what it was.
And then you had most of that team returning, other than Sue, in 2010.
Yep.
Picked to win the Big 12.
Yes.
And then they choked it in the title game against Oklahoma. They blew a 17-point lead.
That was painful.
They blew a 17. John Tallman was working with me, and we were in Dallas sitting by each other. I go, this thing's over. They're going to get a conference championship. And Tallman grabs me, goes, don't say that.
Yeah.
And sure as hell, Oklahoma figured out a way to win that game.
Yeah.
But
there you go, Sean.
Fun. People like when we go down memory lane.
Yeah.
A little memory lane for you. Okay. Before we hit the headline 5, if you're not a member of HuskerOnline.com, check us out. We got a great deal, great promo right now. A lot of people have taken advantage of this. We're going to give you 2 months for $1 by simply using the promo code NU1 at HuskerOnline.com. You're going to get all our premium content, access to the Red Sea Scrolls message board, and more. That's HuskerOnline.com. We're giving you 2 months for $1. Simply use the promo code NU1. What's that promo code, Steve Sipple?
NU1, it looks like I'm reading code NU1.
And you might even spot $1 to a couple people.
Let's not go down that road. Probably.
You'll Venmo them.
Oh,
you're a PayPal guy.
I'm a PayPal guy. PayPal and Cash App. Can I say that?
Cash App.
It's a Cash App. Okay.
All right. Let's take it. Headline number 5. Not to be lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska baseball is playing Michigan State in a crucial Thursday, Friday, Saturday 3-game series that could decide the Big Ten Conference. There's some doubleheaders in the league on Thursday, including Illinois and Purdue. So we're going to get a lot of clarity really after Thursday if Nebraska wins, and then what happens in that game with Illinois and Purdue as well, and the doubleheader.
Mm-hmm.
What will need to happen here for the Huskers on Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty amazing that what's happened with Nebraska baseball. So yeah, they're going to a team that's scuffling. Michigan State, let's put it this way: Michigan State on 3 occasions has allowed 20 runs this season to a team in a single game. You're facing the worst pitching staff in the Big Ten. But yeah, what's at stake is the story. And that would be another Big Ten title. Nebraska won a Big Ten title with Darren Erstad in 2017, won with Will Bolt in 2021. And here they are with a great chance to win another Big Ten title. And by the way, win a series for the 12th time in the last 14 tries. Now think about that. A weekend series for the 12th time in the last 14 tries. This is all very interesting because of what we've mentioned here before, and that is the narrative with this team hasn't all been positive. It seems like it would be based on what we've said right now, but it's just so much about the midweek. Nebraska's hurt itself with a poor midweek performance.
Yeah, you almost took that when Nebraska baseball was good. You took the midweek for granted.
You sure did,
because they would just hammer people.
Yeah,
and they've beefed up the midweek schedule to help their RPI. They're not playing Northern Colorado anymore, and they played UNO, and
I think they played Northern Colorado.
No, they didn't play Northern Colorado.
They didn't play them this year.
No,
they didn't. They ended the Northern Colorado run
because it was just an RPI killer.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, I'm sorry, Sean.
That you're right though. They played them routinely. Their former head coach Mike Anderson, I believe, is still the head coach there.
He is. He is absolute. That I know. So yeah, this weekend, could include a regular season league crown and a number 1 seed in the tournament, which by the way is in Omaha. It's huge. It's huge. And then what you have is Illinois in first place. It would need to lose its series at Purdue. So there's some, it's definitely something to watch. And you can watch it, Sean, because it's on BTN. At least the games on Friday and Saturday are on BTN. Just so people understand, this is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday deal. The game on Friday is at 4 p.m. and the game on Saturday is 11 a.m. So your Saturday could involve watching Nebraska win a Big Ten title.
I'll be spending my Saturday helping Carly And our final soccer game. We got our final YMCA soccer game.
We will have full coverage, however, of this.
We've got Carter and Abby. We'll have a lot of people on hands on deck covering that game for us in East Lansing. But it's a quick turn, Sip, to the Big Ten tournament. The tournament opens on Tuesday this year.
That is a quick turn. Yeah.
And they've tightened up the format. They used to I used to feel terrible for Kevin Kugler having to announce 4 games in a day sometimes.
Yeah.
They would play 4 games in a day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
College World Series only plays 2 in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And what would always happen is like the last game sometimes wouldn't even start till midnight.
Right.
I mean, it was crazy.
That is crazy.
So what they're going to do this year is there's 3 games on Tuesday.
Okay.
10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m.
Okay.
So the 3 seed will play at 10, the 2 seed will play at 2, and the 1 seed gets to play at 6.
Okay.
But then the 4-5 seed game is not until Wednesday at 2 p.m. And then there's a slot open still at 10 a.m. in case there's a weather game and their delay, so they can play a game at 10 a.m. And then there's still another game to be announced at 7 p.m. What I don't understand is how they're going to set when you play next. There's almost like a flex formatting to the next rounds of the tournament just based on how the first 4 games go.
I'm kind of impressed that you've looked at the format.
Yeah, I mean, they have a bunch of to be announces on this format. It's really confusing. Like, I know when the 1, 2s, and 3s and 4s will play, but after that, there's really no rhyme or reason, at least as of now, how the bracket is going to get set up. I don't know if Nebraska would get preferential game times because they're the local team, but I can't imagine the Big Ten doing that.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I just know this: if Nebraska keeps advancing, there'll be a lot of excitement. There was a lot of excitement, and you were at the stadium for the Indiana series last weekend. You were there, right?
I was unfortunately there Friday for the 7-run 9th inning.
Right. Now that series though drew 19,000. I'm going to say 19,257. I think was the final number. An average of over 6,100 per game. So there's already some. What I'm telling you is there's already some excitement.
And I'm going to go on a limb and say that was probably the most beer sales in a weekend they've ever had at Haymarket Park for Salt Dogs or now Huskers.
Were you double fisting?
There was some Cornhead Lager enjoyed, and that's the.
A lot of guys go and get 2 because the line's long.
I ran in Carter. God bless our intern Carter. I had to get hot dogs and stuff for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And the beer lines get kind of long there.
Yeah, 20 minutes I've heard.
And so Carter was already in line with Sam Hoskinson, Matt Hoskinson's kid. And I said, hey, here's my card. Get us. So he helped us out a little bit.
Oh, good job by Carter. That's what an intern's for.
And we bought his beers.
So what do you think about this in terms of Will Bold excitement in his program? If they could win a Big Ten regular season title and then follow up with a strong showing and maybe even how about a tournament title? I mean, Will's program has been all right. This is his 4th year, basically, because there's the COVID year, which I think they're 8-7 that year. So this is effectively his 4th year. They've made one NCAA tournament appearance. Again, they did win the Big Ten that year, 2021. But my feeling is it could use an injection. Like an injection of an excitement.
If they win this Michigan State series and win the Big Ten and then somehow win the Big Ten tournament, would they at least put themselves in a discussion to be like one of the last host sites or
a regional host?
Or are they out of it?
You'd like to think that ship hasn't sailed. There'd be so much momentum if they were able to win this, win the regular season and the conference. God, I would think they'd be back in. It's all about not all, but a lot of it's just about how would their RPI be? I don't have a handle on that.
Well, and the committee looks at a lot of things. I mean, like you mentioned, their weekend record's been outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
outstanding.
Creighton's the polar opposite. Creighton is the king of the midweek, but they're not even going to make their conference tournament in the Big East.
Yeah. So they won't make
their season will be done this weekend. They're out.
And they went 3-0 against Nebraska.
Yeah, but Tuesday wins are not Friday and Saturday.
No, they're not.
They're not. And
no.
Any committee member is going to know that. You can puff your chest out about winning on Tuesday, but the weekends are what define college baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the Nebraska players said it was just it was a mental thing that it's just hard to get up for those midweek games sometimes. Not hard to get up for the weekend games, conference games. But yeah, that's something we'll have to address. I'm not telling him how to coach his team, but I would think that's something he'd address in a big picture sense in the off season. But again, all that is sort of forgotten right now. This is a big series. And let's just say this, Sean, they should win this series. Michigan State's not nearly as good as Nebraska.
No,
they're trying to get in the tournament.
They're probably in the Big Ten. You know who's still trying to get in is Maryland. And you hope Maryland gets in because they have a great RPI.
Okay.
And you want Maryland in Omaha.
Yeah.
You want to
play them. You want to play them.
There are RPIs in the top 40.
Yeah, you want to play them. So, yeah, take care of Michigan State. Michigan State's got the worst pitching staff in the Big Ten. Nebraska, by the way, a stat I noticed I really like because this is what I envisioned and I was a huge advocate for hiring Will. I mean, I wrote about it, talked to Bill Moose about it. Moose hired him.
Darren Erstad was a big advocate too.
Yeah, and they've stolen 86 bases this year, which is the most in that program. That's the most swipes they've had since 2005, and that's what I thought Will's teams would be like. Very aggressive on the base pass, aggressive in general. So you're seeing that, and he has talked about how he wants his team to be the toughest team in the country, and that's mainly you're talking about resilient. You're being resilient. Baseball, you need to be resilient. And this has been a resilient crew. They didn't let that midweek narrative sidetrack them. You saw it. You were at the ballpark. We saw it against Indiana. Big series. They needed it, and they got it. So they didn't let that narrative derail their season, which is good. They have two tough-minded coaches. You know them both. You know Will really well, right? You know Will. I know Rob. Those are two of the toughest minded coaches I've ever dealt with.
Dudes,
yeah. And their expectations are high and they don't lose well.
All right. Well, big weekend, Husker baseball. What are you taking the Harley out this weekend, Sip?
What am I doing this weekend? I got to write. I got to work.
Yeah, you work Saturdays and I work Sundays.
Yeah, I got to work Saturday. Friday, I'm definitely taking the hog out. It's probably to Manawa. But I don't know what I'll do Sunday. I don't know.
We've got, Carly's birthday is today. My daughter.
Carly turns
8. But we're having a birthday party at our house.
With a piñata.
Yeah. With a piñata and singing and 15 girls.
Yeah, that's not going to be quiet.
I'm married to a kindergarten teacher. So I've got a good captain of the ship. I just got to figure out how to hang this piñata.
Well, you can do that. Well,
you're going to have first grade girls swinging a stick. So you got to think this out a little bit.
Yeah, you do. You do have to think it out. My immediate thought is I wouldn't do it. I mean, they're swinging a stick. There's all kinds of problems.
I bought a 48-inch broom pole stick from Home Depot.
Okay. Then just back the girls off. Yeah. If you're not swinging the stick, I would put down some tape and you got to be behind this tape.
Well, I think we're going to hang it over a tree limb, like have it down over a tree because
otherwise,
it's hard to kind of figure out where do you put this thing without somebody putting a hole in your wall.
Yeah. This could get fun.
So
I want a full report on our next.
We got soccer, we got a birthday party, and we got a volleyball game all this weekend. So pray for me, my friend.
No, you'll be fine. You can handle this. You got this, Sean.
And I'll have the baseball game on in the background.
Yeah.
So it should be a good weekend. Well, hey, thanks for joining us here. If you're not a member again, check us out at HuskerOnline.com. Great promo again at $2 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off for another edition of Husker Online Headlines.